Hello, welcome to lantern making, and we're going to show you how to make a really simple pyramid lantern. And anyone can do this or can attempt this. I am not a proper lantern maker, but don't make that turn your screen off. I'm going to help you to show you how easy it is to make a really simple pyramid shaped lantern. I hope we're going to have some fun together. And at the end, we've even got some little tips that if you wanted to decorate it, we're going to show you how to decorate it. Now, it's really important that we just go through some instructions before we start. It's a really good idea to cover the area that you're going to use. Clear the space because glue can get everywhere, and there is glue. Wear an apron or clothes that you don't mind getting a bit messy. And if you can, maybe try doing it outside. I'll explain this again in the video, but this is a piece of willow. What you'll find when you touch it is that one end feels very hard, like it won't move very much, and the other end of the willow is quite movable. These things can help us in our lantern making. So the end that is hard and unmovable, that's really good for making the base of a lantern or a good structure. The softer end of the willow, that's really good for making shapes. So it's just really good to bear those things in mind as we're working with the willow. Mentor Aberystwyth run lantern making workshops at Christmas time for our local community to make lanterns for our Christmas light switch on. This year is a little bit different, so we've decided to create a video so that you can know how to make a lantern and you can do it yourself at home. How exciting is that? Maybe not for those to clear up. When we do our lantern making workshops, we have 3 definite stages: willow cutting and structure making, paper cutting and gluing. That's how we're going to make our lantern today, to try and keep it as clear and simple as possible, so that this is something that you can do at home. And we recommend that you do each stage at a time. You could even start one stage one day, do a little bit the next day, and finish it off the following day. We're making this video to go with lantern packs that we have put together for our Christmas event in the year that this video was posted. The lantern packs we've provided you with have the basic items that you would need to make a pyramid lantern, just like this one. We'll leave a little bit of space between each stage so you can pause the video if you're watching it whilst making the lantern. To make the lantern, you will need some bits and bobs to go with our packs that we have made. But I'm also just going to tell you everything that you need so that if you haven't got these things, you know what to get. If you have one of our packs, you will have some of the items that you need. Not everything, because we can't provide you with everything, but we've provided you with a lot of things that might be tricky for you to find. We'll put the links in the description below so that if you want to go and look for some of these items yourself and you can't find them, you'll be able to find them through the links below. Some things we have bought from our local businesses, and we have put alternative links for you to follow, so if you're not watching where we live, you can find them in your place where you are. We encourage you to support your local businesses if you can and try and find these items in your community. Okay, it's enough of listening to my instructions. Are you ready? Okay, let's get lantern making. We're going to start by cutting the willow. At the bottom end of the willow, the part nearest to where the roots were, you'll find that the willow is a lot stronger. Whereas if you move to the opposite end of the willow, the top of the willow, you'll find it's a lot softer. This means that the part of the willow near the roots is quite good for forming a good foundation for a lantern, particularly if it has got some straight parts in it. This end of the willow is often better for making shapes. Now, you can't bend it straight away, otherwise it will snap. But if you warm it in your hands, you can shape it around into the shape that you require. Now, for our pyramid, I'm going to cut the base of our pyramid out of the stronger end of the willow, and I'm going to make each end around about 30 centimetres long. If you're doing this with children, please, can you do the clip a bit and not let your children, because it's quite scary and these things can be quite sharp. To form the square base of your lantern, you need to cut out, to start with, 4 pieces of willow that are the same length. Then form the 4 pieces of willow that are 30 centimetres into a square shape. It will never be a perfect square because you'll never get perfectly straight willow, or that's my experience anyway. To then make this more of a stable foundation, you want to cut 2 pieces of willow that will go across the square to make sure that your square doesn't wiggle. I'm just going to measure them. And they come out at roughly 45 centimetres long. Now, to make it into a pyramid, you need to cut the parts that go up from your square base to make it a pyramid shape. Because I want to only use 3 pieces of willow, I am going to make it fit to that. Once all of the parts of the willow are cut to make your lantern, you then need to start to tape your lantern together. To do this, I usually start by taping the square shape on the bottom together. Now, it can be a reaction to just wrap the willow round and round and round with masking tape, but you don't really want to do that because when it gets to the gluing stage, if it gets soggy, it can end up in a little bit of a disaster. So you want to get the balance between using just enough masking tape, not too much, not too little. It's often better to start smaller and add as you go along than putting on loads of it and regretting it later. Now that we've created the square, to make the square more stable and less wobbly, we're going to add the slightly longer pieces of willow across the square. I've found to secure each corner, whether it was as a square or doing the cross parts with the willow, that each piece of masking tape was around about 20 centimetres long, like about a handspan. You can tape the middle here with a little bit of tape if you're worried, but this is going to become the holder for a tea light later on, so you will be putting masking tape around it already, so you might not want to put masking tape around it right now. And now that you have made the base of your lantern, the next thing we have to do is put the up parts onto the structure to make it into a pyramid shape. To do this, you secure the stronger end of the willow into each corner of the base to the lantern. Then once we have secured all of the 4 parts upwards, we bring them together in the middle with a piece of masking tape. I have secured the upward pieces of willow to the outside of the frame. It doesn't actually matter, I don't think, whether you do it to the outside or to the inside of the corners of the frame. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to bring all of our 4 pieces of willow together in the middle. And to secure it, masking tape. You don't have to, but I am just going to chop the tops of my willow off so it's a bit more even, and so there's less risk of people getting their eyes poked out. You probably want to leave just a little bit, because once this is glued and tissue papered, we are going to wrap some wire around here, and having those parts that are going out will just help to hold the wire a little bit more. As you will see, the neighbour's cat is enjoying my water. I wonder how you're doing. Do take your time at it. Realise that if there's little people around, sometimes they want to see the finished product, but it pays to make sure that your first structure of your willow is nice and secure, so that when you go to put soggy wet tissue paper on it, it doesn't all fall apart. Now, if you remember, the next part of our process is tissue paper. This tissue paper is very different to the kind of tissue paper that you might have a present wrapped in. If you had touchscreen and you could feel it, you'll find that it's a lot more sturdy than normal tissue paper. And you'll know, maybe from experience, that if you get tissue paper wet that you wrap your presents in, then your present can end up in a soggy mess. and the tissue paper falls apart. This tissue paper is special because when you put it into water, it doesn't all disintegrate. We have put, as we've mentioned earlier, we've put the links for where to buy some of these things from in the description below. This is my neighbour's cat, who always seems to appear whenever I am filming anything, so please excuse her. So, my aim for this lantern is to only use 2 pieces of tissue paper. As we said earlier, it's quite important to try and keep all of the stages separate, and so making sure you do each stage quite well. It isn't difficult. I have not been trained to do this, so I've just picked this up from some lovely people around where I live who know how to do this. With the tissue paper, you don't want to cut the shape so that it's flush to each side. You want to leave a little bit of a hem. Now that helps when it comes to this part because you don't need to measure with a pyramid each side separately. I'm going to show you a little hack or a trick, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so I have got 2 sheets of tissue paper, and I've only drawn a triangle-ish shape on one of them. I'm going to fold 2 sheets of tissue paper together, so I now have a pile of 4 sheets. And I'm going to cut along my rough drawing. You're kidding me? Puskins! What are you doing? As you will see, I have got a cat helping me. She's actually just ripped the paper, but it's really helpful because I'm going to use it to show us how to fix a hole in the tissue in a little bit, because sometimes that does happen. So you now have your 4 triangles. Don't throw these pieces out straight away. We're going to use one of them to help us fix the hole in our tissue paper. And those that are clever amongst you will have noticed that my triangles don't quite reach the top of my lantern. That means that we can use some of these scraps of tissue paper just to help to fill those gaps. So I'm actually going to cut a strip ready to do that now. Now, I already know that there's a hole in my tissue paper, and that is totally fine. I'm just going to cut a piece of tissue paper that is big enough to cover that hole. Now, I have all of my pieces of tissue paper ready to cover my lantern, and I have my lantern structure. So it's time to move on to the gluing stage, which is some people's worst nightmare and some people's best fun. These scraps that we have left, don't chuck them away straight away. until after you have finished the gluing. You could also use these to decorate later on, but we'll show you a few of those ideas later. So keep them for now, but when your lantern's totally finished, you can just stick them into recycling. Next, we need to mix our glue and water together. I am going to tip the entire tub of this into this bucket. Now, in order to make sure I get full use of my glue, I'm just going to pour a bit of water into the glue pot. When the glue is relatively good quality, you probably want to add around about the same of glue again, so 1 part glue, 1 part water, and then probably about another half. It is usually handy to have a towel that you don't mind getting a mess around, or PVA does wash out, so don't let it dry into your towel, but it's good just for catching drips. Now, this is the bit that some people don't like. You want to mix the glue and the water together, and the best way to do it is with your hands. If you're using cheaper glue, you won't want to put in quite so much water. So if you go to a shop that might be seen as a budget shop, their glue is fine for using, but please don't add as much water. You want it to have this kind of consistency, but to still have a gluiness about it, so it doesn't look too like water. The easiest way to work it out is to add a little bit of water at a time if you're unsure. Now we are going to get our tissue paper. This tissue paper goes right in to the glue. Don't be scared. This is the piece of tissue paper with a rip in it, so I'm going to want to be a little bit more careful with this piece, but you still want to submerge it into the glue. Now, when you lift the piece of tissue paper out, you'll begin to understand how it is robust. You do want to squeeze off the excess glue because you don't need that much glue on there, and you also need some more glue for your other pieces, so just gently squeeze some of it out. Then you get your willow structure, and you open up your tissue paper. If you know it's got a rip in it, just be a little bit extra careful. It's quite robust stuff, but at the same time, you don't want to have and waste lots of pieces of tissue. When I make these, I usually start with the stronger part of my structure and work the rest onto the structure. So if you remember, we cut like a hem onto our tissue paper. That is so that it wraps around the pieces of willow. If you've never done this before, often putting the first piece on is maybe like a little bit nerve-wracking, but it's okay, and once you get used to it, it becomes a bit more instinctive, like you know what you're doing. It does also get more messy. Okay. I'm just going to wipe my hands because I'm going to fix my hole now. Okay, so we had our little hole, which happened by accident. If it's a massive hole, then I would recommend that you cut a piece of tissue for that side again, but this one is quite a good size. We just need to use one of our scraps of tissue that we've cut. Put it over the hole and use our hands behind and in front to push it on. What you'll see as the glue dries, it kind of shrinks around the structure, and this, whilst it's a bit baggy now, becomes a lot more taut, a lot more stretched. Okay, we've got 3 other sides to do, so I'm just going to get on with it. Okay, now we have a covered lantern, and so all we have to do now is wait for it to dry. If you do it outside and you live in a windy place, you might get bits of garden stuck to your lantern, so just watch out for those and pick them off carefully if you can. Secondly, if you have not done the tissue in the glue and water mix before, if you've not done this, why don't you cut out a little bit of a test piece so you can stick it in the water and you can have a play with it. That's also a good thing to have on hand. If your kids are getting bored, they usually like sticking their hands into the glue and water, so just have a couple of pieces that you maybe don't need and they can just play with it in the glue and water. And if you're finishing off their lantern, they're distracted for a couple of minutes. So we're going to let this dry and we're going to come back in a couple of seconds, and we're going to look at how to fit our tea light and our wire and our garden stick. We're also going to give you some tips on how you might want to decorate it. So we look forward to seeing you when our lantern is dry. You might want to leave your lantern somewhere outside to dry if it's a sunny day, or if you want to put it by a radiator inside, you will want to put it on something like a rubbish bag or a recycling bag, something that's plastic that will peel off again. Sticking it to it, put it on top of a towel or a carpet is a disaster waiting to happen. It will dry quicker probably by the radiator if you are doing this in the winter time than it would outside, but it will also depend on the space that you have. So our lantern is dried and now we're ready to attach our light to the inside and our stick to the top of the lantern so we can carry it. If you're watching this video and you are making a different kind of lantern, this is just a little thing to remember that you are always going to need to leave a space in which to put in your light. So we're going to put in the light first. We use battery powered tea lights. They're safer and they are less likely to set your lantern on fire or the carrier. Before we put them in, we like to just check that they work. We're going to attach our lantern light onto the crossbar of our Willow structure. What you want to try and do is to leave the on-off button visible and accessible so that you can turn the light on and off. We're just going to attach the light with our best friend for this task, masking tape. Attaching it with masking tape means that if and when we need to change the battery, it's easier to do that because the masking tape just peels off and we can replace the battery and we can put on a new piece of masking tape. Can't really see the light in this light. Next, to complete your lantern, you need to get some garden wire and twist it around the top of your lantern. If you have small people carrying the lantern or people that you might think be at risk of hurting themselves, you can also just put a little bit of masking tape around the wire so that the pokey end of the wire isn't there and could catch anybody. Then we're going to take a garden stick. What you find with garden sticks, the bamboo canes, is that often one end has like a little hole in it. Well, they both have a little hole in them. Sometimes one end is easier to put garden wire into, and it just depends on how long the space is behind the notch in the wood. So you feed the wire through the little hole in the middle of the garden stick. Okay, now to make it more secure, you can also twist the wire around the stick. Then you can make it as long or as short as you like. Then you have completed your lantern. Well done. We hope that our instructions for lantern making have been clear enough for you to understand and have helped you. We're now going to show you some ways to decorate your lantern if you want to. You don't have to, but if you feel like you'd like to, you can go for it. So if you've got any glue left, that might be helpful, or if you've just got things lying around the house that can help you decorate, we will show you how to use them. We hope you have lots of fun and as much fun as we have making lanterns, and we look forward to seeing your attempts. Thank you for watching our lantern making video. We hope that you have enjoyed finding out how to make a lantern. Do comment below and send us your pictures if you've enjoyed this video. Give us a like, and we look forward to celebrating our lantern parade with you. Bye. Hello to the neighbour's cat. You can't sit there. You are joking me. Pussykins, come on. There we go. You can't sit on my tissue paper.